saw an interesting article. I saw an article that said that Eric Garner's mother had, backed this black man for mayor. His name is McGuire. And I'm so leery. We have to do thorough background checks on these black people that they're putting in these political positions, because we see that they are using our own against us, right? They're constantly using our own against us. I keep talking about how the black political leadership in Brooklyn is allowing us to be gentrified to hell, and they know it. They're not doing anything about it, and they just sit there and talk about how we don't come to the community board meetings. I don't need to come to the community board meeting for you to know that I don't want to be kicked out of my apartment. Okay? I don't need to go to the community board meetings for you to know that that people are coming in and bogarting and strong-arming people to sell their property. You know this, and you're not doing anything about it. You know why? Because you're getting paid. I will bet $1 to a donut that the majority of, if not 100%, the majority of the black political leadership that we have in Brooklyn have houses in their home countries. Beautiful houses in their home countries. So they could care less. And nice houses here in Brooklyn, or nice apartments here in Brooklyn. So they could care less if we get gentrified out of our houses. They got a nice vacation home, retirement home. They could care less if we are gentrified. And it is evident in their practices, policies, and everything that they do. And we're going to sit here and talk about this tonight. All right. In nearly 7 years since Eric Garner died at the hands of policemen in Staten Island, his mother, Gwen Carr, has helped turn her son's cries of "I can't breathe" into a national movement against discriminatory policing. And this is no shade against Ms. Garner, because we are often fooled by by skin folk who ain't kinfolk. But I'm hopefully going to shed a little bit of light on just what I read in articles. Just what I read in articles, okay? Ms. Carr has become a sought-after endorser for political hopefuls looking to represent themselves as a candidate for change, especially on policing matters. That is especially true in New York City's crowded Democratic primary for mayor, where several candidates have been coveting Ms. Carr's endorsement in the wake of the national protest that followed the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis last year. But instead of giving her endorsement to one of the more liberal progressive Democrat candidates, Ms. Carr will announce on Thursday that she will endorse Raymond J. McGuire, a former Wall Street executive who served on the New York City Police Foundation, who has embraced calls to reform the police but not defund them. So I want you to understand that he is a former Wall Street executive who served on New York City's Police Foundation. Mr. McGuire, formerly the vice chairman at Citigroup, is a moderate Democrat who was recruited to run by the city's business community. Which business? And quickly raised $5 million in 3 months. But he still must overcome his lack of name recognition among most voters and expand his appeal beyond the Wall Street elite. So since when has the Wall Street elite ever had our best interests in mind, regardless of skin color? Mr. Carr's endorsement could help Mr. McGuire with some left-leaning voters and shore of support in the black community, which makes up 26% of the electorate. Eric Garner and George Floyd are examples of what can happen to any black man in this country and what has happened to all too many men in the city. All very nice words. Let's keep listening. Mr. McGuire said in an interview, Gwen Carr's endorsement means she recognized that I have what it takes to lead the city and reflect the voice of those who would not otherwise have a voice. He doesn't sound like he's our voice. He sounds like he's the voice for the Wall Street elite. And I'm going to keep going and showing you why I feel that way. Ms. Carr said the next mayor can only undertake the necessary police accountability reforms if the city's future and finances are stabilized. We know that the budget is in a mess. And from what I read, he can balance budgets, Ms. Carr said. I have a grandson and granddaughters growing up in the city, and I want it to be a safer place for them. Mr. McGuire, who is black, has adopted a policing stance that echoes that of black lawmakers in the city who resisted calls to defund the police last year, citing rising violence in the communities they represent. So he's already in line with the current black political leadership. Black people want better policing. We want reform, restructure, reallocate the dollars, said Mr. McGuire. We want our policing to be respectful, accountable, and proportionate. All nice words. He has never been a politician, Ms. Carr said, or Mr. McGuire. We need new blood. And see, we can't be so desperate for new blood that we don't see we're jumping out the frying pan into the fire. We have to be very, very careful of that. And we've done it before in the past, and it doesn't seem that all of us learn our lessons. But I'm here to help Let's learn this lesson. Let's not fall for this. Banana in the tailpipe. Okay. Ms. Carr said she admired Mr. McGuire's support for the National Action Network. Isn't that Al Sharpton? The civil rights organization headed by Reverend Al Sharpton. The group has been one of her biggest supporters since her son's death. Mr. Sharpton has credited Mr. McGuire as one of the many anonymous black businesses who have helped fund his organization during the difficult times. And you know that Al Sharpton has history. We talked about when Al Sharpton was on one of those gospel networks. How they was told the gospel network was talking so bad about black people, and Al Sharpton was making excuses, among all the other things we know about Al Sharpton. Mr. McGuire's campaign will reveal the endorsement on Thursday in a digital ad created by John Della's who is responsible for the successful 2013 campaign ad that featured Mr. de Blasio's son, Dante. He got the same person to create an ad for him that created the ad that tricked us about de Blasio. You see how history repeats itself? So now they're trying to use us to trick us about Mr. McGuire. It worked so well the first time. Let's do it again. This is why we have to know history, because white people they just remix it and do it over and over and over and over and over and over again. Okay? Who wrote the script for Mark Skidmore, Chief Executive Assembly Agency, who wrote the script for Mr. McGuire's campaign launch video that was narrated by Spike Lee. In the nearly 2-minute ad, Mr. McGuire and Mrs. Carr visit the locations in Staten Island where Mr. Garner has fatal interaction with the police. Mrs. Carr holds onto Mr. McGuire's arm as they walk around the locations, which is commemorated by the plaque and a mural. He refers to her as Mother Carr. She calls him Mr. McGuire, but he tells her to call him Ray. Her endorsement will be a disappointment to other candidates, such as Eric Adams, Mr. Top Cop, the Brooklyn Borough President, and Maya Wiley, a civil rights lawyer who was Mr. de Blasio's legal counsel and former head of the Civilian Complaint Review Board, said Susan King, an associate professor in political science at John Jay of Criminal Justice. There are some moderates in the reform criminal justice world for whom this will carry a great deal of legitimacy, particularly those of Ray McGuire and Gwen Carr's generation, who are very likely voters. Their generation. Okay? Professor King said, trust. This is an important issue among older voters, and that group makes up a high percentage of people who turn out to vote in municipal primaries. Mr. Ray McGuire, if you gave us something to vote for, maybe the younger people would come out to vote. But you know what it is that we keep seeing through your stuff. That's why we ain't coming out to vote for you. But the older folks, I don't know what's going on. Why they don't see the banana tailpipe? I don't know why they don't see the banana tailpipe. I don't have the answer to that one, okay? Now, here's more meat. Why Kamala Harris is a star of the New York City mayor race. In tight political races, candidates battle over not just what they know, but whom they know. In the New York City mayor race, the most popular person isn't even a New Yorker. I literally got the president's number, Andrew Yang told the news channel NY1. We introduced the vice president-elect to New York City, Raymond J. McGuire said on a podcast last month. I'm going to skip down to the meat, okay? Then there is Mr. McGuire, a longtime Wall Street executive who has been a major Democratic donor himself, was a supporter of Miss Harris before she ran for president. So you see what you're getting here? Okay. Mr. McGuire does not mention her at every turn, but he does have ties to her 2020 presidential primary infrastructure. The national finance chairman of her campaign, Jonathan Hines, is now finance co-chair of his campaign. And there is additional overlap among prominent donors on the finance team. So I'm supposed to vote for a person who is in bed with Kamala Harris and her donors? Absolutely not. I'm sorry, Miss Carr. No, ma'am. I'm sorry, Mama Carr. You got to dig into this man's background, Mama Carr. Okay? You think de Blasio is bad, Mama Carr. Go take a look at Miss Harris, Mama Carr. And this man is friends with her. And let me go on, Mama Carr. Mr. McGuire and his wife, Crystal McGuire, also have personal relationships with Miss Harris, according to a person who worked for both Mr. McGuire and Miss Harris, another person. The person recalls, for instance, that Miss Harris gave a book talk at the 92nd Street Y in Manhattan several years ago. She and her husband dined on cartons of Chinese takeout at the McGuire's home. So they so cool, they having dinner at the house, at Ray McGuire's house, having double dates over Chinese takeout. And you want me to vote for this man, Mama Carr? But the relationship is part of Mr. McGuire's pitch that he would activate his sprawling network on the behalf of the city. Mr. McGuire has publicly cited his ties with Ms. Harris and connections with Washington decision makers. You guys remember that incident where I did a post about it, where the police were trying to make it a felony to throw water on them, when it was a couple of police officers that it was really, really, really hot, and some kids it might have been some older kids, adults maybe, threw water, but it wasn't malicious. Threw water on the police. And even the police at the time, they weren't even upset about it. It was hot that day. Very hot that day. You remember that?
Another video from Brownsville, Brooklyn, appears to involve officers who were deliberately cooling down with residents.
Okay, so let's see. 27 black leaders condemned the dousing of police. As African American leaders who are proud to call New York City home and where we work, we are appalled at the recent, this is a letter that 27 black leaders sent to the New York Times to condemn. We were appalled by the recent verbal attacks on and water dousing of police officers in Harlem and Brooklyn who appear to be lawfully executing their responsibilities to keep our community safe and orderly. The behavior is not at all representative of the millions of law-abiding citizens in our diverse communities. Nonetheless, it would be irresponsible for us to not call this out as unacceptable behavior. The New York Police Department is commended for its recent and sustained progress. Yo, you see what I mean? By our black leadership here in Brooklyn, in New York. They out here doing whatever they please, killing us whenever they please, but you got to send a letter condemning people throwing water. Safest and biggest in America. The violent crime and homicides have declined significantly. Practices and historically deemed unacceptable by the African American community, like stop and frisk and racial profiling, have also been meaningfully reduced. What is that? Meaningfully reduced. Tell that to that boy that was in East New York, who they caught him for coming out the park. So this happened last week.
I didn't commit any crimes, so can you get over the crime? What crime you have to commit? Stop moving. Can you?
I'm recording, I'm watching.
Tell me. Alright, you hold me by I guess I was just
Yo, bro, stay still. Bro, he doesn't even take any shit.
Oh my God! Why would you do that?
To talk to him about stop and frisk being meaningfully reduced. And police engagement through neighborhood policing and other methods is on a very positive trajectory. Really. But there's certainly more to be done. The death of Eric Garner remains a deep, lingering wound in our communities, but we are at a point where when all of our diverse communities can and should acknowledge the hard work of good faith efforts of men and women in our police department and keep us safe while treating us with respect and fairness. This is what the 27 black leaders had to say. Okay? We ask police officers to put their lives on the line with communities every day. We demand that they serve and protect us in all exchange. We should show the NYPD respect when its officers lawfully doing exactly what we have asked them to do. Okay? Now, let's read these 25 names. Eric Adams, Brooklyn Borough President. Names Raymond J. McGuire, Vice Chairman of Citigroup. Mother Carr, please take a closer look at who you're endorsing. We all have love for you. We see you as our auntie. And respectfully, auntie, please look and pay attention to what you're endorsing. You gotta be careful. Mr. McGuire appears to me to not be the type of man that will protect us if we give him power. His track record has shown that he is for the police. He's served on police boards. Mama Carr. He is who he is, and he's not going to change. But then I went deeper. I decided to look at Mr. McGuire's comeback plan. I read the whole thing. So let's just read the beginning. The Mr. McGuire comeback plan is a visionary blueprint to revitalize and rebuild our city, blah, 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 right? He says, as we fight for our fair share of federal aid, we must also review inefficiency and spending levels, consider tax increases on those who can afford it, including Ray himself, if needed. So I'm going to ask again, because I asked this when de Blasio was talking about raising taxes on the rich. The rich have left. So whenever you're talking about raising taxes in New York, you're only talking about raising taxes on the middle class because the rich people left already. And the only reason you hear Mr. McGuire is because you want to run for mayor. Okay? Because had this not been this thing, you would have been in LA with everybody else. A fast and inclusive economic recovery is the foundation for everything that Ray will do as mayor. Certain names just pop out to me. Ray's comeback plan will bring back more than 500,000 good jobs, and at least half of which will be in small businesses. Okay, now here's one thing that he said. This is the second thing on his plan. A wage subsidy to bring back 50,000 jobs at the small business hardest hit by the pandemic. So you're going to give out a wage subsidy, which means you're going to give people money to pay wages. Is that going to work the same way that the PPP loans have been working? Well, all the major corporations have been getting the PPP loans, but the small businesses have not. Is it going to work the same way, Mr. McGuire? Are you going to give it the same parameters, requirements, restrictions to keep us out, Mr. McGuire? A major infrastructure program that will create jobs, rebuilding our roads, bridges, and fixing subway elevators, buildings, and renovating affordable housing and making our city more sustainable. So you trying to take housing and make it private? So we see how that worked out for Flatbush Gardens. We're going to skip down to number 5, targeting job training that gets more New Yorkers the skills that they need to get jobs. So we're at the point now where we like bump your jobs. We want our own businesses. That's why we want our reparations. So we no longer have to worry about you giving us a job. We want to build our own businesses so we can have our own money. But you want to put job training. And who's this job training going to be for? Who will be eligible for this job training? Affordable childcare for all New Yorkers, which will grow jobs in early childhood education and help parents re-enter the workforce. Now, here's the thing. With early childhood education, that means you have to force vaccinations on the children early because you can't go to school unless you are fully vaccinated. And you're not going to be able to go to these early childhood education programs without being fully vaccinated. And you know they're not going to let your child come in without that COVID vaccine. So that sounds like a good thing. But on the heels of what's going on right now, get 50,000 New Yorkers back to work with the Comeback Job Accelerator. The Comeback Job Accelerator will bring 50,000 jobs by covering 50% of a worker's salary for 1 year at a small business that were hit hardest by the pandemic. Small businesses could apply for the subsidy for multiple employees. Is it going to be the same standards and principles and requirements as the last one that small businesses are saying that they did not get unless they had a freaking hookup? But the majorities of small businesses did not get this. So are you going to put in the same stringent laws or requirements in place to make sure that people don't get these loans? Because you work for Citigroup. So you know, and you are familiar with how they treat us with home mortgage loans and every other type of loans and business loans. Notice he isn't using his relationships with bankers and everything to provide small business loans. Notice he's not doing that, especially for black businesses. What, Mr. McGuire, you want black people to vote for you. What are you going to do for black people? You talk about small business, this. What you going to do for black people? What you been doing? You. Yeah. But the program would likely be capped at 50% of a business's January 2020 headcount. Workers could be full-time or part-time. And then what is considered a small business? See, you got to ask these questions. Like Dr. Claude Anderson say, you got to open it up like a fish, fillet it, open it up, see what's inside. Ask questions. What is this? What is that? Ray would work with small business leaders. Who are these small business leaders? Who gets to choose who these small business leaders are that's going to represent all the small businesses? Who's going to choose these leaders? To tailor the scope of the program to businesses with the greatest need. Once again, who's going to make this judgment? Who are you picking? But would target the program to businesses that lost more than 40% of total revenue by 2019 levels. Ray would ensure that the money goes first to communities hardest hit by unemployment as a result of the pandemic. So a lot of us, especially here in New York, a lot of us don't live and work in the same community. So you're going to go to the communities that are hardest hit by the businesses in that community, when the majority of the businesses in our community aren't owned by us. So that is not helping the people in the community. Especially if you don't know who the small business leaders are, who's going to tailor the scope of the program. This type of subsidized job program has numerous benefits compared to other forms of financial assistance. It allows subsidized workers to access federal funds via the Earned Income Tax Credit and Child Tax Credit, since those who are generally only available to employed people with incomes. All right, we're going to skip down. Allow city permits and licenses to renew for the next 12 months without any fees. And I feel that a certain amount of these should be allocated for black businesses. But you're not going to hear that not come from Ray McGuire. Small businesses are required to renew a number of permits and licenses each year and pay annual renewal fees. For all of 2022, Ray will automatically renew some categories of licenses and allow businesses to self-certify renew some others for businesses under 100 employees. Fees will also be waived for new businesses. These small new businesses. Whose new businesses is it going to be? It should be black new small businesses, so that we cannot be gentrified out of our neighborhoods. But I guarantee you that Mr. Ray McGuire is not going to waive fees for new small black businesses, okay? These landlords are small businesses too, including many minority property owners. Notice that word, minority, okay? And notice he's trying to get sympathy for the property owners because he's calling them minorities. Because, I already did that gentrification thing when I talked about the landlords. So we already know which property owners are really suffering. Not to say that there aren't some minority property owners that are suffering, but we know who's suffering. We know that there are some of his friends. Okay? These bankers, these real estate investors, all of these people, these big money people, these Wall Street investors. We know that some of his friends are defaulting on their loans. Didn't I read this article not too long about how one company defaulted on a loan for $46 million? So don't be tricked when he sits there and talks and he throws out a word and talks about many minority property owners. No, we know who you're talking about, Mr. McGuire. We're talking about your friends, the Wall Street investors, real estate investors. Many of them would like to offer rent relief to their tenants, but do not have the financial ability to do so with some government assistance. It's exactly the same thing they did with the PPP loans. They're going to say, this is for small businesses, and big corporations take it. And also, businesses, especially when it comes to real estate, a lot of businesses tend to have small LLCs per property. So the property looks like it's only owned by one, that one LLC. That LLC has one property. So it looks like a small business, property owner. When in actuality, it's under a conglomerate that owns a whole bunch of properties. But each one is its own LLC. He's not telling you that Wall Street trick, is he? Or real estate trick, or whatever the hell trick you want to put it under. He ain't telling you all that. So what constitutes as a small minority property owner? What does that mean, sir? Avoiding joint evictions and foreclosure crisis requires a number of interventions that will help both small businesses and small property owners. Work with credit rating agencies to suspend credit scoring starting January 2022. Ray will work with credit agencies to ensure that the economic impact of COVID will not have a negative impact on credit scores for small business owners. How you gonna do that? That one is real big because your credit score is on a national level. How is the mayor of New York going to affect our credit score? Sir, how you going to do that? You just talking out your behind right now. You talking out your behind and you pissing on our heads and you telling us it's raining. And matter of fact, you pissing on our heads and telling us it's sugar water. You telling us that you can change our credit score. You's a lie. Launch the Comeback Bank initiative to make capital access available to small businesses through community banks. Small businesses, especially family-owned and family-run businesses, and those owned by people of color and immigrants, have very difficult time accessing credit. Since when? Because all the stores that are owned in our community most of them are owned by immigrants. We got the Arab community with the corner stores and the gas stations. We got the Asian community with the Asian markets, some of the grocery stores, the liquor stores, the nail shops. We got the Arab community with the chicken spots. So I want to know where, so we're going to give them more money so they can continue to gentrify our neighborhoods? See, I want you to catch the trick bag. They use our names on this, but we already know this is who this is going to go to. Whenever you start opening it up, you didn't say black people. You said people of color and immigrants. That's everybody in New York. That's everybody in New York. You're not specifying nothing. And as a result of the pandemic, small businesses across the city are desperately short on capital. Larger banks often require years of audited financial statements and high credit scores. They also prefer to make loans or more. So you're telling us stuff that we already know. How come you're not trying to do something to help black people? Because historically, the banks have not been doing anything, have not been giving the black people loans, not minority businesses or people of color, black people. And question, I got a question. While you were working at Citigroup, how many black loans did you approve, Mr. McGuire? How many small business loans did you approve while you worked there? How many did you lobby for? Let's say you didn't even work in that department. How many did you lobby for? Did you go to your boss and say, hey, it is not right that we are not giving out loans to black businesses and small black businesses? Did you do that while you were there, Mr. McGuire, where you had all of this influence? Mr. McGuire, did you do that while you were there? But you expect us to believe that if we vote for you for mayor, that you're going to do it as mayor when you didn't do it when you was at Citigroup? Mr. McGuire, you take me for stupid. I was born at night, Mr. McGuire, but I wasn't born last night. Opportunity to cure violations without paying a fine. There are currently only 43 violations for which the city will waive fines if the businesses prove they have cured the issue in 30 days. Ray will work with every relevant agency to expand that so the list of other violators do not create meaningful risk and health safety. And instead of the burden of proof being on a small business owner, Ray will require the city to verify that this issue has not been cured before a fine is levied. Who will oversee this? That sounds really great. Who will oversee that and make sure that that's not done in an unjust way? Deputy mayor for small women and minority owned business. Also, now white women is in this too. And do white women have a problem getting loans? Ray will appoint a current former small business owner to serve as a deputy mayor for small women and minority owned businesses. Okay, so you already know once they put white women in there, we ain't getting nothing. Not me as a woman or as a black woman. Safe and affordable housing. Construction of new housing that is affordable for the lowest income New Yorkers and preservation of affordable housing. That sounds really good, right? Wait till a little bit later. Let's see. Ray will leverage all his expertise in financing as well as modern approaches to construction to build more and build faster and get New Yorkers back to work as quickly as possible. And this will include, so how you going to, we already at a deficit. How are you going to build, what money? What money are you going to use? So you're going to leverage your expertise in project financing, which means you're going to privatize, You're going to privatize. You're going to get private money from all of your Wall Street investors, and then they will own it.
My name is Joseph Clark. My wife and I have been living here at Flatbush Gardens for about 7 months. We knew we wanted to live in New York. We knew we wanted to make this move, but we knew, obviously moving from the Midwest to the East Coast, you have to be ready for a price adjustment.
My name is Nora Gross. We put in an average of $5,000 in renovations to every single apartment before we rent it out. These apartments are gorgeous by the time we're done with them.
We're fairly picky people. We weren't ready to settle easily. It's great. We have this incredibly low price, this very big apartment with 2 bedrooms, which is what we were really looking for. And the buildings are constantly improving. They're renovating all these apartments. Everything was renovated when we moved in. I love the hardwood floors, a gas stove. I love having new appliances, a brand new fridge. It didn't take long for it to feel like home.
This is a 2,500 unit apartment complex. We've got 10,000 residents.
We thought we were going to be in a hole moving to New York, but now all of a sudden, there's nowhere else that I found that has this kind of space and, everything's included. We were looking for a place that we could kind of set up to start building on the future rather than just some place we'd stay for 6 months and then bail, It's government regulated, so we can feel confident knowing that this is what we're going to be paying. We can save money, we can build on something, and that's so exciting for us. The other great thing, we're not too far from the city. I work in Midtown. It takes me 35 minutes to get there by train. We have a train stop 100 feet away from us. You can buy a month pass. It's unlimited, so you can ride as much as you want in a month, which, really, when you compare that to the price of parking and gas and, all the things that we had to deal with back in Kansas City, we're really saving money there. This neighborhood is fantastic. The people here seem to be very, very friendly. Saving this money allows us to reinvest in this place that we really believe in. And, but it's a neighborhood that's ready to improve and wants to get better. We get to be a part of that, which you can't really put a price on, I don't think.
So you're going to privatize it. And we all see what's happening in Texas when they privatize the electricity. You're going to privatize. You're going to get private money from all of your Wall Street investors, and then they will own it. So you're going to privatize it. And we all see what's happening in Texas when they privatize the electricity. Some projects will be financed through private investment that is paid back over time through revenue or savings generated by the new infrastructure. And honestly, that sounds a lot like China. That will be financed through private investments that is paid back over time through revenue or savings generated by the new infrastructure. This could include leverage privatizing funds to accelerate resiliency projects in neighborhoods impacted by Superstorm Sandy, or use of green banks to finance clean energy projects. Clean banks, which his friends probably own. Federal funds given raised relationships with the Biden administration. We already talked about the relationships. The relationships came over for a double date for Chinese takeout at his house. Okay, now I'm going to skip down to this part. Create a smart city. New York City has not done enough to leverage our technology talent to modernize city services and build smart infrastructure in ways that better serve New Yorkers and make our city even more attractive for innovation. Ray will put local tech companies to work building smart grids, which will help them grow out and create jobs and improving safety, managing traffic flow, and reducing government waste. He will also tap our local tech talent to apply innovative solutions that will make government more accessible and responsive to New Yorkers, for example, by designing a single universal app for all city services. Yo! That sounds like the People's Republic of China. The People's Republic of China, they have an app called WeChat, and you can't have like Facebook or anything like that. You're going to have WeChat, and that whole chat is monitored by the government. It's monitored by the Chinese government. So everything is connected to your WeChat. They don't carry wallets. They don't do anything. Everything is connected to their WeChat. So the government has access to everything. On top of that, this also sounds like facial recognition software, which has already been proven. The tech gurus that worked at Google, two black girls who worked at Google, went before actually one of them went before Congress, talking about how facial recognition, that the algorithm in the facial recognition software was racist. About how it does not inherently pick up black people. It miscategorizes, misidentifies, all of that stuff. So you want to build a smart city so that now the police can misidentify us with facial recognition software, the same NYPD that you fund and that you sit on the board for, or on their foundation? No, sir.
Right now, Amazon can scan your face without your consent. All of our faces without our consent, and sell it to the government, all without our knowledge, correct?
Yes.
And, Mr. Chair, I'd like to seek unanimous consent on how Amazon actually met with ICE officials over facial recognition system that could identify immigrants. I'd like to submit this to the congressional record.
Without objection.
Thank you so much. Ms. Garvey, in fact, it's not just Amazon that's doing this, right? It's Facebook, it's Microsoft, it's a very large amount of tech corporations, correct?
That's correct.
Do you think it's fair to say that Americans are essentially being spied on and surveilled on a massive scale without their consent or knowledge?
I would make a bit of a distinction between what Facebook and other companies are doing, but yielding to Ms. Bulamwini for more specifics on this. I will say most of the law enforcement agency systems operate on DMV databases or mugshot databases, so information that has been collected by agencies rather than companies.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ferguson, one of the prime constitutional concerns about the non-consensual use of facial recognition technology is rooted or alluded to in the 14th Amendment, correct?
That's correct. It's one of them.
And right now, companies, governments, agencies can essentially steal or use your biometric data from you without your consent. And this is outrageous, right? Because this is America, and we have a right to privacy. Isn't that right, Ms. Koliani?
That's absolutely right.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ms. Bulamwini, I heard your opening statement, and we saw that these algorithms are effective to different degrees. So are they most effective on women?
No.
Are they most effective on people of color?
Absolutely not.
Are they most effective on people of different gender expressions?
No, in fact, they exclude them.
So what demographic is it mostly effective on?
White men.
And who are the primary engineers and designers of these algorithms?
Definitely white men.
So we have a technology that was created and designed by one demographic that is only mostly effective on that one demographic, and they're trying to sell it and impose it on the entirety of the country.
So we have the pale male data sets being used as something that's universal when that isn't actually the case when it comes to representing the full sepia of humanity.
And do you think that this could exacerbate the already egregious inequalities in our criminal justice system?
It already is.
Thank you very much. I yield the rest of my time to the chair.
How so?
So right now, because you have the propensity for these systems to misidentify Black individuals or brown communities more often, and you also have confirmation bias where if I have been said to be a criminal, that I am more targeted. So there's a case with Mr. Ba, an 18-year-old African-American man who was misidentified in Apple stores as a thief. And in fact, he was falsely arrested multiple times because of this kind of misidentification. And then if you have a case where we're thinking about putting, let's say, facial recognition technology on police body cams in a situation where you already have racial bias, that can be used to confirm, right, the presumption of guilt, even if that hasn't necessarily been proven, because you have these algorithms that we already have sufficient information showing fail more on communities of color.
Create a $50 million loan fund targeted to small, minority, and women-owned business enterprise, okay? They're going to create a $50 million loan fund targeted to these people. So you know that all the white women are going to take all the money. Especially in the construction field. City contracts generally do not include upfront payments. And many small minority women, business, whatever, don't have the cash on hand to front the cost of workers and materials. As part of his comeback initiative, Ray will designate $50 million in advances or low-interest loans to help these business owners access city contracts. That sounds really, really great. And it sounds like you're probably going to give it to the Asians or the white women or every other group except for us. Increase minority women business enterprise goals to track with the recent inclusion of LGBTQ businesses. This year, New York joined a number of U.S. cities and states expanding the MWBE program to include LGBTQ-owned businesses. As additional business certified in the MWBE program, Way will increase the city's MWBE contracting goals in order to grow the pie for everyone. So we see who he's going to give the money to. So not only is it going to be taken away from us and given to white women and Asians and every other ethnic group in this country or racial group in this city, but now you're going to give it to the LGBT. There ain't going to be nothing left for us. And Ray knows it. Making childcare available to every family, creating good childcare jobs, and helping parents to re-enter the workforce. I already told you that sounds like a plot to force everybody to vaccinate. Fix the broken property tax system so that every community pays its fair share. This is so interesting. Ray will ensure that communities benefit from our economic recovery by addressing inequities in our economic system that drains resources from our working New Yorkers. For example, he will fix a broken property tax system that places unfair burden on the middle class and working class homeowners, low-income renters, and small business owners in the neighborhoods around the city. The problem with our current property tax system are glaring. For example, as a result of decades of inaction by our current political leadership, low and income homeowners are forced to pay a higher percentage of their home values in tax compared to New Yorkers of more affluent neighborhoods. This is an issue that can especially impact Black and brown. Oh, he's heard of the word Black before. This is the first time he's seen Black in this whole thing. You notice that? And we up to page 16. And it's the first time he ever mentioned Black. This is an issue that can especially impact Black and brown homeowners. A home worth $150,000 in Crown Heights currently has the same exact tax bill as a home in Carroll Gardens for $9 million. That's because our outdated property tax system that does not account for the gentrification we've seen in so many areas around the city. No, that's because people like your friends lobby the city and make sure that nothing is happening and to make sure that doesn't ever change and take place. Ray will provide the political leadership needed to extend relief for low-income, middle-income homeowners and renters, as well as small business owners. He'll undertake a thorough overhaul of the property tax system and will make sure that every neighborhood pays their fair share and save working families thousands of dollars each year while asking wealthy property owners to pay a little bit more. So here's my thing. If that's the case, why you can't say Black homeowners? If it affects Black homeowners, how come we aren't getting preferential treatment for the loans? How come they're not refunding black people their money back? If they overpaid in their taxes, why you ain't giving them their money back? Child, I don't even know how to start this video because it's so crazy, and I'm about to break. I know what I'm about to do to y'all, so it's about to get real. Hold on to your seats. Let's just hop in.
And a police commissioner,
Have a seat,
city
sir. Have a seat.
commissioner is being arrested.
Watch your head getting in, sir.
Sit from the side. You've been vocal for some time. Do you think this is a build-up?
Go ahead, sir. Come on, come on.
This is this.
Come on, get in.
I will be filing for grievance.
Okay, all right.
Is there anything you want to say to your constituents?
Go ahead. Go.
In your district, sir? Anything you want to say to your...
I want to tell my constituents is that I fight for them and I'm here for them, and that this is uncalled for when you represent somebody to represent you.
Do you know why you're being arrested? Have they told you?
No, they have not told me that what I'm being arrested for.
Did you put your hands on officers? Did you do anything wrong?
No, I put my hands up and they grabbed me from behind and pulled me out of my seat like I was being criminalized, like a criminal that I am not.
Why is he so mad, you ask? Because they want to bring facial recognition cameras to Detroit, okay, in the police department. So he is challenging this as the Detroit Police Commissioner. So now we see why he mad about this, okay? Let's keep going about what happened this day.
Burton was charged with disorderly conduct. He's since bonded out. He tells me the actions taken against him are an assault on democracy.
Get your hands off me! Get your hands off me!
Detroit Police Commissioner Willie Burton was taken away in handcuffs Thursday night as tempers flared during the board's public meeting.
Yesterday, this happened to me. Today, this can happen to you.
The meeting was tense from the start. Many people there in masks to protest DPD's use of facial recognition technology. Commission Chair Lisa Carter, though, says it was Burton's refusal to stop speaking, even after his time was up, that led her to do this.
Commissioner Burton, for the third time, you're out of order, and I'm going to ask that Commissioner Burton please be removed from the meeting.
Burton was asking Carter, sworn in again as the board's chair, what she was going to do differently.
The fact that I requested for him to be removed from the table had everything to do with him being out of order and him not recognizing me as the chair.
Did you see how many black faces were sitting at that table? Did you see who the chair was? Who got upset because he didn't recognize her as the chair? Not that he is trying to fight facial recognition software that could wrongly accuse her of some shit. Like, fuck all that. He did not recognize me as the chair. I want my brother arrested. You know, Dr. Claude Anderson told us about Detroit.
We tried to build a black town in Detroit, Michigan. They said, that's divisive. This is divisive. Y'all build something for black folk. I had a plan laid out to build a black business district in the city of Detroit. And whites and all the other groups marched downtown. Here's the Mexicans in Detroit, Hispanics in Detroit, Asians, Arabs, all Dearborns, all Arabs. They all marched downtown to protest my building a black business district for black folk. They said, Dr. we're admitting Detroit is 92% black. We got a Chinatown, Asian town, Arab town, Greek town, Pole town, Hockey town, Cork town. But if you build something for black folk, that's racist. And guess what your leadership said? You sure is right. That would be wrong. Sure, we don't want to do that. We come a long ways. We came all the way from we're socially integrated now. We don't need anything. And I said, but you don't have anything. Yeah, I know, but the little bit we got, if we try to build something for black folk, they'll take that away from us. And that took me back to 1935 when a guy named George Gershwin wrote a play, an opera called Porgy and Bess. And right in the middle of Porgy and Bess, they got porgies out in the middle of the black neighborhood singing, we got plenty of nothing, and nothing is plenty for us. I said, nobody's that silly. And just think in Detroit, Michigan, when I set that business district, black folk had an annual disposable income in Detroit of about $11 billion between the city and the schools and everything else. Disposable income. And you see, it went into bankruptcy. I told them then, if you start practicing group economics with your $11 million and make your money not even necessarily bounce 8 to 12, bounce 10 times, now you got $100 billion. Because that money will come around past you 10 times. If the money circulates around, your 11 billion will become what? 10 times becomes 100 billion. You know what they told him? Well, doctor, that'll be racist for us to do that. And so now Detroit went bankrupt, and now whites have taken over Detroit. They're going to take over every black city in the United States. They're going to gentrify them with immigrants. They're going to bury you beneath immigrants coming in, and they're going to come in and come over you and bury you. Then they're going to privatize all the public resources. I told them in Detroit, I said, Detroit, if you let all these immigrants come in, they're going to take everything of value out. Is what they're going to privatize the bridge to Canada, the tunnel to Canada, the city airport, the zoo, Cobo Hall, Jolas Arena, the historical museum, the golf course. I go on that, and now they got all that. And now you got 92% blacks sitting there, not only own anything personally, they don't even own anything publicly anymore.